Matthew Broussard, what's up? How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Joel?
I'm great. How's this year been for you so far?
This year, 2021. I forget 2020 is over.
Oh yeah.
It was a long, long one. It's been okay. Things are very slow right now, um, but there's hope on the horizon, so that helps a lot. The winter. This is the first time I've ever experienced like seasonal, not depression, but gloominess. I usually like winter, but when you can really only stay indoors, it's tough, especially in New York. How's 2021 been for you?
Oh, not bad. I'm in South Florida, which I believe you were actually in Florida for a bit. So the weather's,
I was.
pretty sunny and nice here.
Yeah. What part?
Yeah, I'm in a small town called Boynton Beach, but if you're familiar, like near West Palm Beach, Boca Raton,
Yeah.
that area, that's where I'm at.
My brother's in Jupiter, so I go
Oh,
down there a
okay.
lot.
I
Yeah, yeah.
love Jupiter. And you've been actually pretty busy since, not only during COVID, I don't know if you've been doing it this year, but I think I heard that you actually started doing some volunteer tutoring. Is that correct?
Yeah, for a couple of years now. I had started before, but I got to do it. I used to just go in and help students who needed help, but COVID, as horrible as it was, meant their organization had to start pairing off tutors with students for the
Mhm.
semester. So you got to work with one student in one subject for the course of a semester, which is a lot more satisfying, a lot more running, all via Zoom. But I got to like relearn linear algebra, which was really fun for me. So that was one of the ways I occupied my time during COVID.
And obviously, you've been practicing different forms of stand up. When we were talking
Mm-hmm.
offline, you've been doing the Zoom shows, which I got a chance to
Mm-hmm.
attend. But you also, I think I've seen that you've been doing like stand up outside in Central Park. So, how'd that go?
Yeah, New York adapted very quickly and started doing park shows, rooftop shows, and even some patio shows. No indoor shows in New York. Not really. Um, those were early on really tough because the crowds weren't really there yet, so you were just kind of shouting and um, and just it built some new muscles for me. I don't have much of a performative background. I wasn't like a theater kid or anything, so I
Uh-huh.
really learned how to. I mean, some days you couldn't even rely on the mics; you'd have to just be shouting at people, uh, and you'd have to also kind of lower your expectations as to how you're going to do. So that was a really fun experience for me. It was. I'm. I had fears before all of this that I was maybe stagnating a little bit in my
Uh-huh.
in my growth and my abilities, and I do not fear that after the 2020.
Well, I'm curious how the audience was like social distancing because I've seen, I guess in parks where they had like a white circle around and just people were
Mm.
in each circle. Was it that way when you were doing your stand up?
No, no. So we couldn't actually be holding shows. You have to have permits from the city to do an official show.
Hmm.
But if you stand there with a speaker box and a microphone and a bunch of people happen to sit in front of you, well,
Oh.
it's not really a show. So if we were to put any marks as to where people could sit, um, then we might get shut down. So it
Mm,
was just a free for all. People,
yeah.
people were far away close by, but by the end of the summer, people were corralled more easily because people were coming back regularly.
I
Hmm.
heard that you actually recently opened up for Chappelle, I guess, in his hometown, which you kind of just started just to went to go see him and then you end up opening for
Yeah,
him. So how'd you get a chance to do that?
I drove out there with my girlfriend. We had the idea of just going to watch. It was a field in Ohio, and I knew someone enough to get tickets, so we ended up getting tickets. And we went on a Friday night. We watched the show, and as we were leaving Saturday morning, I got a text from a friend who was one of the managers for the tour, who invited me to coffee, and I went to coffee, and Dave was there. And after I talked to Dave for a while, he generously offered me 10 minutes, and it was very fun. It was very surreal. Yeah, it was really good comics in the lineup, and at that point, it was also having done all the park show. I think I might have been like a little in my head more if I hadn't been doing park shows all summer. So that was towards the
Mhm.
end of the summer. So it is still intimidating. Dave draws a huge crowd. It was like 300 people every night,
Oh, wow.
but it's spread out in the field, so all the laughter gets lost into the atmosphere. And I was prepared for that, so it felt very good.
It looked like a pretty sweet venue from what I've seen, especially in this special, like how everyone was
Mm,
spread out outside, and I was like, "Wow, I would've, gone up there and saw a show or
yeah,
2."
yeah. There are people who came back regularly. It was very safely set up. They had a thermometer. Everyone got tested, temperature check for the people attending the shows, and anyone allowed backstage, whether it was cameramen or comedians or comedians' friends, all had to get a nose swab test on an almost daily basis.
Oh,
So
wow.
he had 15-minute tests, so like White House level testing. So there was no spreading going on backstage.
I think I've heard that you actually engage in more acting roles. So what
Mhm.
kinda acting roles would you like to play?
Well, I've always been trying for acting roles. I've just been booking a little more lately. I just anything funny, any character that's silly or funny is the goal. Um, I played basically Colin Jost in a movie that should be coming out soon, starring Billy Crystal and Tiffany Haddish, which I auditioned for.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that was fun. I got to watch the movie we shot in 2019, and I just watched it like last week for the first time. They just sent it out because COVID really slowed down the production, and they're hoping for a theatrical release soon. I don't know how much of that I'm allowed to say, but it should be on its way out.
And you kinda mentioned before in your stand-up that I guess the image that you kinda look is that you always would play,
Mhm.
like, the jock or the jerk in, like, a high school.
Yeah, I always do, man. It's crazy. It's always that part that I end up getting very antagonistic. And I watched myself in that movie. I watched myself on screen. And I was like, oh yeah, like there is just a knee jerk reaction of fuck this guy. Like there's something. Even me watching myself, it's like I don't want that guy to win.
Yeah.
Like I don't want that guy to lose. So I don't know. Maybe just aging will put me out of that. Fortunately, and unfortunately, I'm getting older. Maybe I lost my hair or something, I could play
Yeah.
different characters, or if I gain weight, got got really
Well
old looking.
well, I would think that's a difficult role to always play because especially if you're that's not, your actual personality in person, and then, if you do it too good, people think or automatically assume that that's how you are in real life.
I consider it a very difficult role to play. Now, I am a bad actor, so every role is a hard role for me to play. But you get lines and scripts where they're like some guy like just walking down the hallway and shoves him like, "Get out of my way, loser." No one acts like that. It's
Yeah.
very rare to see someone who delights in antagonizing complete strangers. To play a role, you have to put yourself in their mindset, so you have to justify that behavior somehow. And I haven't learned how to do it. Uh, I need more hate in my heart, I think.
Well, and other projects that you've been involved with is that you actually started your own podcast with your girlfriend called She Does Stand Up Too, in which you provide a lot of great information for people who are wanting to become comedians. So, can you just share what can listeners really get out of that podcast?
Yeah, so we started to stand up. So I've been doing comedy for 9 years, and she's been doing comedy for like 1 or 2. No, I'm nearing. Yeah, I'm 9. She's a COVID adjustment, you could say 1, but she's always been interested in doing it. She had an improv background before we met, but she
Hmm.
started after me, and we have enough of a distance between us that there's no competition, so we can really step back, and there's no like I can just say, "Hey, I'm better than you at this," and she's not going to take offense to that. Like, or she'll trust my advice a little more. So we kind of use it as um, kind of a scrapbook, not a scrapbook, a time capsule of
Okay.
her growth through it, because it's so fun to watch someone do all that. Again, from a later perspective, and we have great guests, and yeah, we just look at what she's doing, and a lot of what it is I get to help her skip some of the messier mistakes. She'll
Hmm.
obviously still make mistakes, and I'm not gonna like unopen any door. I'm not gonna open any doors for her that she hasn't earned on her own. But
Yeah.
just getting to rewatch it, I feel like I'm giving better advice than I would just
Oh yeah.
if you asked me what advice do you have for a young comedian, I'd probably forget all the stuff a young comedian is actually dealing with. Whereas when I get to see her do it, it leads to really good advice and really good stories.
It's a very helpful podcast for anyone that's, definitely wants to, dive into doing stand up. I mean, you do interviews, but you also, educate the listeners. I mean, you mainly educate your girlfriend, but I mean, a lot of people can just, learn and listen to all the great advice that you've offered in, the 9 years of experience that you had. So,
Mhm.
is there maybe just one advice that you could share for our listeners that probably are interested in doing stand up?
Oh, if you're interested in starting, just start. There's really nothing. I mean, next week, do it next week if you can. If you can find an outdoor open mic. I know COVID right now, but if you can find anywhere to just start doing it, even if it's Zoom, uh, the second you start, you started. It's like learning how to swim in that until you get in the water, you're not learning. You're not learning anything until you actually get in and feel the water around you. So, and I feel the same way with stand up. Don't delay. Don't try to push off that start date. Just do it, and then you're doing it.
I guess a lot of people, I definitely understand that they prefer the, stand up in person rather than doing Zooms. But if you don't have stand up around, definitely do Zooms. And I
Yeah,
actually look forward to doing Zoom, like actually joining Zoom calls. I mean, I got to see your show with Liz Mealy, and I
yeah.
was just cracking. I like to multitask when I attend these Zoom shows. So I'll like do my
Hmm.
work at editing the podcast, but at the same time, it's kind of just listen to a podcast itself. I have my like headphones and I'll just listen to stand up professionals like yourself, just cracking me up. And you guys are just like practicing your new material, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun. If people are mic'd and participative, it can feel very close to the real thing, and it helps us just work out material because it's what people don't realize on the outside is it's just such a painfully slow process
Oh man.
getting that wording right. It takes telling a joke hundreds of times or thousands of times. We don't have those reps right now to get in, so whatever we can do to expedite it.
When I attended the Zoom show that you were participating in, you were cracking me up the most. If anyone wants to see like plenty of videos on YouTube, you actually do a lot of roasting too, which you're awesome at. And so
Thank
I'm
you.
curious, what's the best roast you've ever given to another comedian?
I was really proud of my joke against Alex Hooper, who's a great comedian who has a skin condition that causes his skin to be very very dry. Uh, there's a really thing to just the first thing I say about him. But the joke was, if wrinkles add character, Alex's face is a very strong Gmail password. That was my proudest joke.
Oh man. So do you participate? Is there like underground roasting? Because I mean, I've seen it obviously on Comedy Central, but I didn't know if there's like if you're rusty on doing some roasting. Is there like underground roasting that you try to
Yeah,
sharpen up?
there's a lot of it in New York. There's pre-COVID, there was I think two weekly shows, maybe it was monthly, but I want to say weekly. I think there was two weekly shows where they had like three battles per show, four battles per
Oh
show,
wow.
and that was main event stuff. That was stuff you had to work your way up to, and then they would also have like open mic type roast shows. So there were a lot of. It's a very popular sport for people interested in it.
I always would picture underground roast battles be like 8 Mile and that
Hmm.
underground when they're rapping against each other. That's how I picture like underground roast battles.
Yeah, those things is very few people can do it live. You do really need to prepare for that back and forth kind
Hmm.
of tournament style roasting. But yeah,
So what do you normally do to prepare for a roast battle?
I write for a couple days and then call a friend and run them and see if they're any good. I haven't done one in a while. I did one in New York City against Dave Cyrus that was really fun, and I wrote a bunch of jokes for it, and we that was fun because he's a really good roaster. I haven't kept sharp in it. I wrote for a roast show, but I haven't competed in that much in a while. I should get back up there. It is fun to judge roast battles though, because you'll just sit there with like three judges, and they go back and forth for a couple minutes, and then in the time they're going back and forth, you can just write down a couple things to say about each of them, and then you don't have to. then you look witty because it looks like it's off the top, but you really had minutes to prepare.
Something really cool that you do, and I saw the Instagram profile on it too, is that you actually do a lot of clay making. So how'd you get into that?
I started when I was really young. I started when I was like 5. My parents bought it for me, and I had just like white Sculpey clay, and started making stuff as a kid. I think a lot of kids do that, but my parents, I would want toys, and my parents. So my friend, his parents bought him every toy he wanted, and my parents didn't like the instant gratification of that. So they would either not buy me the toy or make me wait. So to compete with my friend's toy collection, I would sculpt the characters that he had as toys. And I would get really annoyed when his toys were way better than my sculptures. So I got very intense about making them more and more realistic looking. And I did that probably through like middle school. And then I didn't do it very much in high school or college. And then after a breakup, when I was in my early 20s, after a breakup, I started sculpting again because I had nothing else to do. And I would say through the course of my 20s and to now, I've been just doing it very regularly and trying to improve and trying to make my own characters. So it's very satisfying and will never be monetizable in any way. So that's it's nice knowing doing something that you'll never get paid for.
They're great, sculptures that I mean people can see on display in your photos. So has anyone reached out to you and asked for you to like I guess make a clay model for them?
People ask for commissions, but the time it takes for each one of these things and how fragile they are to ship, it would be just so expensive. It would just not be worth it. You could just go buy the toy, or you could get a professional to make it for you. If I could learn the 3D sculpts like on the computer, I could maybe mass print them, but it takes a lot of work to make a single one, and I usually have to be really excited about it to make it in the first place. So I haven't really done commissions. And it's also I'm also afraid it would like break or you wouldn't like it
Oh
when it
yeah.
arrives. So that's a bummer. I did make BoJack Horseman
Okay.
shortly after that series premiere, and at the time there were no toys, there were no sculptures of him I could find online. So I was, as far as I could see on the internet, one of the first people to make a 3D version of BoJack Horseman, and it was tall, it was elaborate, and I put it
Uh-huh.
online, and I got a message from Lisa Hannawalt, who designed all of the characters for that show. Brilliant artist, and she invited me to the studio, which was actually down the street from where I was living at the time, for a little tour of the studio as a thank you. And I gifted her the sculpture, her and the creator of the show, whose name I'm spacing on, but that was given to the writers, and it was left. I believe it's on the writers' room desk
Hmm.
at BoJack Horseman. So that was a really cool experience. That was one instance where I was very very happy to give away a sculpture. So,
I've heard you mention it before, and I definitely see it. It's kind of like like Pokemon influence on your
yes,
sculptures.
Pokemon heavy. I've been Adventure Time is really seeping into what I do. So a lot more Adventure Time. Um, Power Rangers, Gundam, a little bit. I don't
Oh
know if that
wow.
shows up that much. Who else? Who else do I really like? Steven Universe a little bit now is starting to seep in there too. Um, but those are, maybe a little Dragon Ball
Oh,
Z.
I see that. I definitely see that.
Hmm.
I heard you mention, Pokemon a lot before. So are you a fan of Pokemon yourself?
Yes, more of the art than the games. I play Pokemon Go. I haven't played an actual Pokemon Go game since. I mean, I played the originals. I played like Snap and Stadium, Blue and Gold, but I haven't played one of the longer adventure games in a while because I know how addicted I would get to it. And yeah, I play Pokemon Go a lot right now. I play that every day because it's a good way to stay versed in all of the new Pokemon because I still love that. I mean, whenever a new generation drops, I always look through all the designs. Very very inspiring.
I miss the good old days. I mean, was a Pokemon fan when it first came
Hmm.
to the US, and I miss the good old days when it was just 150 Pokemon out, and it was just red
Hmm.
and blue for the Game Boy games, but then, like,
Hmm.
expanded to all the different colors, and I've heard, like, a younger generation talk about, like, Pokemon and all the different colored, different types
Hmm.
of games, but when I told them that it was, like, all I know is red and blue, like, they made me feel like I was the old guy in the group.
Yeah, you're my age. That was what I played too. Now they have so many generations. I don't know. I think there might be 1,000 Pokemon by now.
Oh
That would make
man,
sense.
jeez. Like,
Like 800, 900. Let's see.
do you have a favorite
Because in Red
Pokemon?
Blue, not a single favorite. I mean, Mewtwo will always be. I know it's not a great answer, but Mewtwo is still one of my favorites. And Mew. Um, what's a more interesting answer than that? Larvitar. I really like Larvitar from Generation Two. It's
Okay.
like, so remember Dragon. I'm sorry, Dratini, Dragonair, Dragonite. How it
Yeah.
was this. It was a wild Pokemon, but not legendary. But it was rare enough that it had the stats of a legendary. There's usually one of those in every generation that's very late in the Pokédex near the legendaries. Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar were that in Generation 2. It was stats equivalent to the Dratini family. And Larvitar was the early one. And it's this little angry, little dark, I think it's dark rock or ground rock, maybe.
Hmm.
And it's angry, and you can tell it's fierce and scary, but it's also like chubby and cute at the same time. And I
Hmm.
really admire when a character can be tough but cute simultaneously, where it
Oh
looks like
yeah.
it's trying to be intimidating and
Yeah.
failing. It's one of my favorite traits in a Pokemon or a character.
Popular one is like Pikachu, and everyone, loves Pikachu
Yeah,
because, the cuteness. But if you don't know, like, if you're not familiar with Pokemon, you can turn into Raichu, and like, that's a strong Pokemon.
Alex. I think the people hate on Raichu. I like the design of Raichu quite
Oh,
a
yeah.
bit. I think it's a really good looking Pokemon. Did you know there was supposed to be a third evolution?
Oh, no, I
They
didn't.
released there was this dump of old documents and files,
Oh,
um, for like early Pokemon, and you saw all these Pokemon that they made but never made it into the game. And there was apparently a character named Gorochu that
hmm.
was the third in line, that was like
Oh, man.
red with horns and smoke. There was an evolution of Raichu, but it offset the symmetry of the game was
Oh,
the
man.
reasoning. And then in the next generation, they introduced Pichu, who was a pre-evolution of Pikachu, and I don't think they allow for evolutionary lines of four. So we'll never know what it looked like.
I was a big fan of like Mew and Mewtwo, but I would say my favorite
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon, I can't remember the name, but it was like kind of like a fox Pokemon, but I use like it's so long since I played.
Ninetales and Vulpix,
Yeah, yeah, and you could
the
use,
red
like,
one or the yellow one.
I always liked the blue one where you use, like, the water stone or something.
Oh, Vaporeon.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's what it was.
Okay,
Yeah, but
yeah,
those were cool
Vaporeon's
yeah,
really cool. I
yeah.
like Jolteon, the electric
Oh, yeah, that was
counterpart.
a cool one.
Yeah.
Something that really is really cool that people that you do, and you kinda use your own artistic skills on it, is your Monday Pundays project. So, do you mind
Mm.
sharing what that's about for our listeners?
Yeah, so I used to draw these little cartoons on the back of work documents when I was very bad at my job. And I draw these little cartoons that are like, it's a play on words. So if it's like a caveman sculpting a vase, you would look at that and the answer would be Harry Potter. So it'd be puzzles like that. And I, over the course of a year, started posting them on Facebook, and I ended up doing it every Monday. Because I would procrastinate so hard that the first thing I would do on Monday at work was just start drawing.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up putting them in and making a website, which became an app. And every Monday I post a new one, and I'm nearing 500. I don't post every Monday now. I usually do like a series of maybe 10 of them, and then take a break because I've done enough now that I don't have as many ideas. But it's a good challenge. It's meant to be an exercise, um, and it can be very frustrating, but very very satisfying.
Like you mentioned, it's a good brain exercise, which a lot of people should do, or spend some
Mm.
time to do every day. And you actually have an app for it, which I actually participate in. A couple I can get, but there's some that are really hard.
There's some that are very very hard. Yeah, I don't make them that easy anymore. It's best to start from the earlier ones. If you start from like one
Mm.
through 100, then you'll probably be able to get a lot of those more easily. And then when you get to the 200s, you'll understand how they work a little better. Uh, and then the last 200 have been pretty insane. So some of them like require a calculator. Some of them require like Googling.
Oh man.
Another rule, there's no, you can Google anything you don't understand. If you
Yeah,
see a
yeah.
word you don't know, look it up. There's one that you have to know a language that basically doesn't exist. There's
Oh.
one that requires you to Google Translate to figure out what language it is, because it's a language most people don't even know the name of, much less how to speak it. So
And you do all the drawings yourself, so how'd you get into drawing in the first place?
uh, I would just, I mean, I've drawn since I was a kid. I'm not like, I don't think I'm any more. I think I have a strong background in drawing. I would just draw for fun the way
Mhm.
most kids do. I just kept it up, and I don't think I was particularly good at drawing when I started Monday Funday. But I would need to be able to draw things to the level of being recognizable. So if I draw the cast of Friends, it has to look like the cast of Friends, because if I just write the word Friends underneath it, it's no longer a puzzle.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, it's not challenging. So I would draw and redraw until it looked right, and I've probably improved a little bit, but I'm still a very amateur cartoonist. I aim to get to the level of it being visually recognizable, and I don't care to go much better than that.
I've always thought it was really important for people to learn math, even though a lot of people would say, like, what's the whole point of, learning math? But, and I could never, word it correctly on what's the importance of why people should, learn math. So do you mind sharing to everyone why is math so important to you?
I just find it very beautiful. I find it truly entertaining, and I feel sorry for people who will never get the same experience of the feeling you have watching your favorite TV show uh, come to an end, or a season finale, or just like those are the moments in math where it seems, it's drudgery when you work through the little things, but when you have multiple concepts tied together very cleanly, it just feels good. Um, I would say the importance of math. When people ask, why do I have to learn this? If you were trying to be a professional soccer player and you asked your coach, well, why do I have to go jog? That's what I think math is. Math
Oh,
is
yeah.
like it's the very fundamental application of taking what you know and using it to build a bridge to what you don't
Oh,
know,
yeah.
what you need to know. And if
Oh,
you can
yeah.
do it with math, I think you can do it with anything.
Yeah.
Math is just taking a set of facts and then working them together to figure out what else you can determine from that. So it's someone else's line, but math is just what you can prove. That's it. Numbers happen to be one facet of math, but numbers are not mathematics. It's logic in its purest form, and it's also irrefutable. It's not like history where we just have that someone wrote that down and we have to trust it. You know what I mean? We weren't there to see it ourselves, or science. We've researched it to the best of our ability, but science is constantly changing. And what we knew 100 years ago, we've proven wrong since, or we've found quite big asterisks next to it. But math, we know those things to be certain. That if you give these constraints, then this is always true. Um, so it's really it's knowledge and logic in its purest form, and I love it for that. And I truly believe anything I've figured out in my life is because of the strength I've built because of math. I think I came into comedy with that approach of looking at things logically, breaking them down into the components you can be sure of, and
Mhm.
using those to build. And yeah, I think you can use that for a lot of things, for
Oh, yeah.
business, for comedy, for art, even.
When I do the editing for the podcast or even the YouTube videos, I'm always using math. I mean, I'm always
Hmm.
breaking it down logically on like numbers and everything. And I'm always thankful for, I was never really good on like reading or English classes, but
Hmm.
math, for some reason, I was always like excelled at. And I
Hmm.
would like to think that I'm thankful for my experience in doing well in math because it allows me to think strategically on
Yes.
pretty much everything I do.
Hmm. That's it's I can feel the exact same muscle group working when I would do coding. It's a very similar
Oh,
satisfaction, and very similar to comedy writing. I consider computer programming, it's very similar in that, like, which lines work, which lines don't, cut those, and how do you create a bridge between the two.
oh yeah.
how do you take out everything that's unnecessary and keep just the pertinent parts? What were your favorite classes in math?
I was big on algebra.
Mhm.
I would say that's where I really excelled at, but I would tell you this, trigonometry was my weakness, and I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I would say it was just their equations for trigonometry, which was completely hard and difficult. But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I would say that trigonometry was the hardest for me. But everything else I did well. But yeah, trigonometry was just kicked my butt.
Trig is yeah. I get angry. Trig is not math. Trig is like remember Fast and the Furious 2, how it had none of the main actors, and
Yeah,
then afterwards it goes right back to the regular
yeah.
franchise with all the actors. I think Trig is Tokyo Drift. Um, or was it two? Was Tokyo Drift 2? No, I'm sorry, it
Yeah,
was probably 3. Or the movie Halloween 3, how it fits not into the
yeah,
franchise.
yeah.
Trig, I'm only learning now. I'm just skimming through a book uh, for complex analysis, which is a pretty tough math class. It's after calculus. It's after linear algebra. So it's like a like a second year math class, maybe third year. I don't know. But I learned the proof for that formula recently based on complex analysis. And it's really pretty when you learn it that way. But there's no way a high schooler could like understand that if you're just taking algebra or trigonometry.
One thing I really loved about math is especially doing a long equation that you actually do know the formula for. I love
Mhm.
doing it, like working on it, and it feels like I'm doing artwork in itself. Just like when you're writing down all those equations, and you can actually make, if you want to make different shapes of everything, you can. But for some reason, I remember one day I just wrote down a long equation and figured it out. Like by the time I look at it, it kind of just feels like I've done it like a long artwork in itself, just because it's the long, all the numbers, and then you add,
Yeah,
just certain symbols and everything. That it looks like artwork in itself.
it's really pretty. Yeah, good
Oh
proof.
yeah.
I like that you said that because I remember a couple times in college I would do a solve a problem that was maybe like a page long,
Uh huh.
and I get to the end of it, and I would look back at the page and be like, "This is correct, but I could make it look way prettier."
Yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
redo it with the proper alignment and everything, so it just did like this. The equation gets bigger and then it shrinks back down, and you get like the answer, which is just like three letters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that feeling of how pretty a good proof would
Oh
look.
yeah.
Uh, or even redrawing it so it was nicer. So
Oh yeah.
that's I fondly remember that.
Yeah. Eh, Math is fun. Like if you really you know what you're doing, math is really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. I just wish it was taught better. I think it's getting better, man. It's unbelievable what there is online right now. There's this thing called three Bl- three blue one brown, and there's Minute in Physics, who I watch a lot of videos for, and now Quanta Magazine is stepping into it as well.
Uh-huh.
But there's these YouTube videos that teach math concepts that
Okay.
use 3D moving imagery, which
Oh wow.
I think one of the big downsides of math is that it's taught on a static whiteboard. You're
Mm.
trying to show movement and
Yeah.
shape. A teacher can't draw that,
Yeah.
but there's resources, or even a textbook. It's still just two dimensional and static.
Yeah.
These videos online now, I've been able to go back and not just relearn things, but understand them better than because of the visualization tools and just how
Oh yeah.
smart the people creating this stuff are. Not just smart in their understanding of math, but smart in their conveyance of very difficult subjects. So I hope that younger people learning math now
Oh
will
yeah.
will get more joy out of it
Yeah.
and a better understanding of its math is also so one. I think one of the reasons for my passion for it was my father grew up very poor,
Mhm.
lived in a house where they all shared one bed. He had three brothers and parents shared a bed. There was no indoor plumbing. And he was a very gifted student, a very good reader, and a very good mathematician. And he was just kind of a whiz at test taking and scored very high on his PSAT and got to go to college as a result of the scholarship he earned from that,
Mhm.
which was not a plan in the family's future. And he uh, ended up studying chemistry and earned a PhD and earned really good living. Was kind of able to pull
Oh,
the
wow.
rest of his family out of poverty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was STEM. I think STEM is a very good means of social of economic mobility. I know the country that we live in and the world we live in, there's not enough economic mobility, but a strong foundation in
Yeah.
science and mathematics is a
Yeah.
great chance at being able to ascend
Uh-huh.
the economic ladder.
Since we're wrapping up, is there anything you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, check out She Does Stand Up too, especially if you're starting out in comedy
Oh, yeah.
or interested in starting in comedy.
Your Monday Pun Days are so awesome, and I definitely
Thank
anyone
you.
that is interested, definitely download that app so they can, check out your Monday Pun Days and, definitely do those or those brain exercises because I appreciate those from you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Joel.
And no problem. And I appreciate this conversation, and I just love to just pick your brain about math and talk about Pokemon with you. But appreciate this from the bottom of my heart. But Matthew Broussard, thank you so much for joining us in Irie Chat, and best of luck on everything.
Thanks, Joel.